Under the mantle of stars, a mountainous chain extends where the cries of a baby resound at night. This land belongs to a brave hunter whose first instinct when hearing these cries is to take his axe, thinking that it could be a Kamadraja prowling. Those little animals have made a big mistake when approaching the cabin of a hunter. Follow the sound of the cries around your house, and when you reach the stable, you will not find anyone there except your horses. For a moment, he wonders if he is hallucinating. After all, since he and his wife learned that they could not have children, he has been hearing voices of children. But it was not a hallucination. There, in the meadow, there is a baby. He quickly picks it up and, when he approaches it, he can feel his heartbeat. At that moment, his wife arrives, surprised to see him holding a child. It is then that both mutually agree that this child will be his. There is a famous legend about a magician who, with just a gesture from his hands, could invoke a gust of wind that caused the clouds to gather on him. Soon the rain fell from the skies, satiating the thirsty earth and making it shine with life. The villagers were happy, and their songs filled the air, since the magician not only brought the rain, but also protected the city from threats beyond its borders. Through his mystical powers, peace and prosperity flourished, and hunger and thirst were eradicated. However, the magician did not rest. Tirelessly, he continued his research, always seeking to improve the lives of people. His feats were so extraordinary that they called him the well-educated magician, and his story became a legend appreciated by all. Saronarian, the child who was once found in the stable, grew up reading this story. Now, at 12 years old, Saron often immerses himself in books, captivated by the magic that is on his pages. His father, Vincent Aaron, now 40 years old, never gets tired of seeing his son read. For Vincent, the curiosity and enthusiasm of his son are infinitely endearing. Today, after finishing his firewood cutting job, Vincent affectionately turns to his son before pointing out that it is time to go hunting. As they walk through the forest, Saron looks at his father and asks him about magic, how it works and if he could ever learn to use it. The humble hunter, who knows little more than hunting, responds in his simple and sincere way. Meanwhile, some of Saron's companions see him with his father and wonder why Saron is always so interested in accompanying his father or reading books. Even when they invite him to play, he refuses. They begin to doubt that Saron understands the books he reads, thinking that they are too advanced for him. Later, when they see Saron walking next to Vincent, some of the children begin to think that Vincent is not really his father. One of the mothers tells her children that Vincent is not Saron's owner, stating that they found him somewhere when he was still a baby. Meanwhile, as the children speak, Vincent hears them, gets angry inside, but does not confront the boys. Instead, he clings to his belief that he is Saron's father, whatever happens. Decided to make Saron happy, Vincent decides to take him to the city the next day to get the fruits he wants as a reward for helping him that day. Saron feels happy and looks forward to going to the market, although Vincent, in silence, would like to be able to do more for him. However, Saron is still desperate to learn about magic. The next day they head to the city, since in the kingdom of Thoria, Saron marvels at the beautiful view of the city. When they arrive at a store, Vincent asks Saron to stay with a grandfather he knows while he does some errands. He warns Saron not to go away and to avoid the nobles. Vincent quickly leaves, leaving Saron waiting, while he helps his grandfather a bit. Saron takes the opportunity to ask him about magic. At first, the old man does not understand, so Saron repeats himself. The man then leads him to a bookstore in front of his store, where he can find books on magic. Excited, Saron quickly heads to the bookstore. Upon entering and about to take a book, someone shouts at him and tells him not to touch anything. The bookseller tells him that his hands are too dirty to handle the books. Saron asks if at least he can read one, but again he is denied. The bookseller explains that the books are very expensive and are intended only for the nobles. Heartbroken, Saron leaves the store and then notices some books piled up on a corner of the floor. Recognizing the place, he realizes that it could be where his father gets the books that he reads. However, he notices a detail. The nobles who visit the bookstore not only get the books they want, but are also treated with great respect. This makes Saron wonder why the nobles receive such privileges while he is excluded. Remembering his father's warning about avoiding the nobles, he begins to question that he could be wrong. While Saron prepares to leave, suddenly the guards catch him. They demand from him to know how he managed to enter the enclosure of the bookstore, which is reserved only for nobles. Saron explains that his father is close, but the guards do not believe him. They suppose he is an orphan and decide to stop him. Before they can hold him properly, Saron escapes skillfully. When the guards realize what has happened, they only find his jacket. Saron has already hidden behind some flowers near a building. From his hiding place, Saron hears some children arguing about magic. They are asking someone to explain what magic is. At first, the person gives a vague explanation, of which Saron already knows most from his readings. Then, the person says something that captures Saron's attention. Magic has to do with perception. At that moment, Saron feels that he has found an answer that he had been looking for. The person continues, explaining that perception is sharper than knowledge and faster than skill. He adds that with a little cultivation, anyone who has enough perception can become a magician. While Saron listens attentively to the conversation within the enclosure, suddenly he hears the voice of an old man suggesting that he climb the wall if he wants to listen better. Saron is surprised at first, since it seems that the old man knows what he is thinking. He does not know what to do, but he considers whether to follow the advice or leave. Finally, he decides to climb the wall, feeling that not doing so would be a regret that he would carry for the rest of his life. So he climbs to the top of the wall and sees a group of children gathered around an old man sitting under a tree. The old man notices it immediately and, to Saron's surprise, invites him to come down and join the conversation. The old man introduces himself as Alphys Miri, the director of the School of Magic Laos and a level 4 magician. Encouraged by Alphys' warm invitation, Saron prepares to come down from the wall and join the group. Saron enters the academy grounds and sees a group of children his age sitting under a huge tree with the old man, who is the director. As Saron approaches, the children quickly try to reject him, insisting that he leave because he is not a noble. However, the director Alphys Miri intervenes, asking Saron to come forward and share why he climbed the wall. Saron sincerely explains that he wants to see magic, admitting that he has only read about it in the books, but he has never seen it in real life. The children make fun of him, accusing him of lying, but Saron begs the director to show the magic. Alphys accepts, saying that he will invoke the wind for Saron. The director activates the magic of the wind, causing the children and Saron to go up in the air. Saron is amazed by the experience, with his eyes wide open, full of amazement, while he feels the magic firsthand. After descending, Saron, still full of curiosity, asks the director what magic really is. The frankness and sincerity of Saron's question surprises Alphys, which leads him to explain. Alphys tells Saron that magic is an act that breaks the general laws of the world. It is the mental application of exploring and discovering the hidden truths in phenomena. Saron listens carefully, then thoughtfully points out something that he has noticed in the books he has read. He mentions that many great thinkers were persecuted for their unconventional ideas, only so that those ideas were later accepted as universal truths. He asks aloud if the essence of the truth is already hidden within such anomalies. This observation impresses the director, but it also makes him curious about Saron's perspective. When Saron anxiously asks how magic can be learned, Alphys doubts. He is not sure that Saron, being a peasant, is capable of mastering magic. To demonstrate the required ability, he asks one of the noble students to enter the spiritual zone. The student concentrates deeply, entering an intensely sensitive mental state, and successfully guesses the number of coins hidden in the director's closed hand. Saron is amazed by the precision of the student's guessing. The director explains that when a magician is completely focused, he is so in tune with his environment that he can perceive things beyond the ordinary. The spiritual zone is an increased state of sensitivity where the mind can influence and control the phenomena around him. Saron feels confident in his ability to achieve what the other student demonstrated. The director, observing his determination, advises him to look for a quiet place to practice, emphasizing the importance of first finding oneself and then erasing oneself. Although the concept is abstract and challenging, it arouses the curiosity and determination of Saron. The director knows that, although anyone can try to enter the spiritual zone, only a few have the ability to truly master it. Encouraged by his enthusiasm, The director allows Saron to try to enter the spiritual zone immediately. Saron closes his eyes and concentrates deeply, with his mind focused on the task. As he begins to understand the essence of the practice, his actions seem uncertain and unpolished to those who observe him. The noble students rule out their efforts as fruitless, and the director, although intrigued, seems indifferent on the outside. However, Saron's persistence does not go unnoticed, and the director quietly recognizes that with continuous effort, Saron could develop an increased sensitivity to the world around him. After leaving with the students, the director reflects on Saron's innate potential. He recognizes that Saron exhibits a natural aptitude for magic, one that could have flourished if he had been raised in a noble family from an early age. This thought persists in the director's mind as he considers the possibility that Saron's talents could exceed expectations, despite their humble origins. Only in the fields of the academy, Saron processes what he has learned, decided to improve, and leaves the academy jumping on the wall once again. Now, completely immersed in the spiritual zone, Saron experiences a deep feeling of connection with everything that surrounds him. As his understanding deepens, he feels as if he had become one with the world itself, an overwhelming feeling of unlimited traveling it. With this new consciousness, he runs home anxious to explore the possibilities of this power, but as he advances quickly, he accidentally collides with someone and falls to the ground. He apologizes immediately, but the people he has collided with are not ordinary transcendents, they are gangsters, and their temperaments ignite with fury. They begin to attack him, offended by the unintentional collision. In the midst of the altercation, a noble girl arrives and inquires about the uproar. The gangsters explain that they are simply teaching a lesson to the peasant. Saron tries to explain himself, but his words are ignored while the gangsters continue to hit him. The noble girl, however, intervenes, urging them to stop and warning that Saron could be seriously injured or even dead. While trying to take control of the situation, the gangsters, perspective towards their intervention, continue to discuss what to do next. One of them mentions that they could sell Saron as a slave, reasoning that no one would worry about a peasant and that they would not have problems because of it. The noble girl, perplexed by his cruelty, suggests that they first examine Saron. However, the gangsters misinterpret his words, assuming that he wants Saron to undress. At that moment, something inside Saron breaks, the humiliation, fear, and impotence that he has felt overflow in a single, overwhelming emotion. In an instant, time stops. Confused, he wonders what is happening while he is frozen. The memories of the demonstration of the wind magic of the director flood his mind. Saron realizes that, without wanting to, he has caused a magical response, just like the magic of the wind that the director had shown. Suddenly, time moves again and the gangsters no longer control the situation. Without prior notice, everyone begins to levitate from the ground, suspended by an invisible force. In an instant, they fall back to the ground with tremendous force, their bones breaking by the impact, leaving them severely wounded and incapacitated. The noble girl, surprised by the demonstration of power, approaches Saron. His curiosity awakens and asks him where he learned such magic, commenting that he is only a peasant and that such skills are unheard of in someone like him. However, before Saron can respond, a crowd begins to gather, attracted by the noise and the commotion. Realizing the danger of staying longer, the noble girl quickly retreats, disappearing among the crowd. Saron, feeling the weight of the cold world around him, does the same and runs away. As he moves through the streets, Saron cannot take away the feeling that the world is distant and indifferent. In the house of Karas, known for his first-class nobility, the master of the house, Saka Karas, is reading the newspaper. He realizes that his daughter, the noble girl from before, enters the room. He raises his eyes from the newspaper and asks him why he has returned earlier than expected. She responds with indifference that she has learned everything she needed to know and that the class is no longer fun. With a change in his attitude, he then asks his father if he has any connection with the School of Magic, expressing interest in meeting them. Vincent looks around, anxious for Saron, his concern growing when his wife informs him that Saron has gone to the area of Taladar Boles to cut wood, despite the snow that is still falling. Vincent decides to look for him, worried about the severe weather. While he goes out, he remembers the day he took Saron to the city last spring. That day, Saron almost gets lost, and Vincent wonders what has really happened to the boy since then. In the middle of the snow-covered forest, Saron is in front of one of the trees, remembering how he had managed to use magic that day, but he has not been able to replicate it since then, since it was a subconscious act. Although he has not managed to do magic again, he can still enter the spiritual zone. In this elevated state, he perceives everything around him with a sharp clarity. His eyes land in a specific place on the tree where the light seems to shine more intensely, and instinctively hits the tree with his axe. The tree breaks into splinters with the force of the blow, and Saron realizes that he has just knocked it down with a single blow. Without Saron knowing, Vincent has been watching in silence from behind a tree, surprised by what appears to be a lightning bolt. Vincent watches carefully as Saron continues to cut, oblivious to his father's presence. Saron, lost in his own thoughts, feels a deep need for knowledge and decides to repeat his actions every day. Decided to prepare for the moment when the opportunity to understand his skills reappears. 3 years have passed, and Saron has grown both in skill and understanding of his capabilities. Now, competent to enter the spiritual zone, he can connect with nature during his meditative sessions, feeling as if he had become one with the world itself. With the wooden logs in hand, he heads home, eager to return to the family routine. However, when he arrives at his house, Saron notices an unusual scene. A luxurious cart pulled by white horses parked outside. Something is different, and his curiosity grows as he enters. Inside, his parents present a visitor to him, a well-dressed housekeeper of the house Ont, a second-class noble family. His name is Taran, and he has come to talk to Saron after hearing about his ability to read. Saron, confused, wonders why a servant of a noble family would be interested in him, especially because the house Ont is known for its high status. Taran explains that he has a job offer for Saron, an opportunity to work for the house Ont during the relocation of his great library. This library, one of the largest in the region, contains almost 10,000 books, many of which must remain strictly within the grounds of the house. The process will take 2 years, with Saron and Taran in charge of ordering, while the heavy work will be carried out by the carriers. Saron, surprised, realizes that this must mean that the house Ont has great knowledge, particularly advanced knowledge of magic, which would be invaluable to him. But while Taran speaks, Saron feels a strange tension, especially when the housekeeper mentions that the only people who know about the relocation of the library are his family. If even a single book comes out of the grounds, or if there are rumors about missing books, it could mean serious consequences and the lives of his family would be at risk. Vincent, Saron's father, listens to the conversation with a calm understanding. Taran had initially thought that Vincent had sold Saron for this job in exchange for money, but Vincent denies it, insisting that he simply wants to give Saron the opportunity to achieve his dream. Taran had told Vincent that Saron should be able to read the books of the house Ont, which Vincent believed would help him pursue his aspirations. However, Tamurin discards this idea, pointing out that Saron will not be able to read all the time, and that they will not be able to watch him all day. The frustration grows in the room as Tamurin impresses Vincent, questioning whether he had lied to Saron about his future all this time. Vincent, deeply concerned by the situation, reflects on his role in Saron's life. He feels a stab of guilt at knowing that Saron is not his biological son, but still recognizing the potential of the boy. Vincent had always believed that Saron should have noble blood, so he had asked Taran to welcome him, simply to give Saron the opportunity to access the knowledge of the library. He had never cared about money, but the reality of the situation begins to weigh heavily on him. In a moment of frustration, Vincent asks Tamurin to leave his house, realizing that he made a mistake by involving his son in this dangerous situation. While Taran prepares to leave, Saron stops him, surprising both Taran and his parents with a calm determination. Saron agrees to take the job offered by the house Ont. Tamurin, although relieved, warns Saron again, emphasizing the serious consequences and even the slightest rumor spread. He warns him that Saron's life would end if something went wrong. Saron, fully understanding what is at stake, assures him that he will be cautious and will not hold a grudge, even if things take a wrong turn. Tamurin recognizes his determination and tells him that he will come for him in a week. He warns him that, once he steps on the grounds of the house Ont, there will be no turning back until the job is completed. With that, Taran says goodbye. Vincent, deeply worried, watches Terran's departure, fearful that Saron is walking towards something dangerous. He expresses his fears to Saron, suggesting that Terran is not looking for a worker, but a sacrifice. Vincent offers to help Saron get out of the deal, but Saron reassures him, grateful, thanking his father for the greatest gift he could have received, his unconditional support. Moved, Vincent hugs him tightly, promising him that he and his mother will always be there for him, whatever happens. A week later, Saron is ready to go. Although he feels a pungent hesitation in leaving his parents, he knows that this is an opportunity that he cannot miss. He is about to enter a world full of powerful people and, although he does not know if he will survive the next 2 years, he feels a sense of purpose emerging within him. The House Owen is located in Krastoria, known for producing warriors of great strength and renown. The men sent to escort Saron explained to him that the founder of the House Owen was a level 3 general, and the current master of the house, Sir Bishop Owen, is a level 4 gentleman. They explained to him that Sir Bishop controls the military force of the city, a powerful figure with enormous influence. When Saron arrives at the great mansion of the House Owen, he is impressed by the grandeur of everything. The property, a symbol of the second-class nobility, stands before him with its imposing structure and intricate design, overwhelming him. It is clear that Saron has entered a field far above his previous life. The service rooms and the offices where Saron will stay are located in a separate part of the mansion. While they escort him to his new life space, Saron cannot avoid feeling both astonishment and apprehension. The next day, Saron is taken by Tamurin to the Great Library, a vast room full of bookshelves full of books. Tamurin explains to him the importance of the task ahead of him. All the books must be relocated to the new library, and Saron will be in charge of classifying them. Tamurin hands Saron a list of books to be ordered every week, explaining that his task is to gather the books according to the list, making sure that they are correctly categorized. His working hours will be from 9 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon, with free nights. However, Taran warns him that Saron will not be able to leave the grounds during the working hours, nor will he be able to enter the main mansion unless he is ordered directly. The mayors below will inform him of the additional rules. Saron will begin his tasks the next day. The next morning, Saron starts working. He dresses properly and soon realizes why a person is assigned to classify all the books. It is important that the classification system remains consistent. As he works, Saron comes to understand that all knowledge is interconnected, and that the common thread that unites everything is history. He soon notices that of the 10,000 books in the library, 850 are about history. Decided to learn everything, Saron decides that he will dedicate the next 2 years to reading these books, because if he really wants to become a magician, this is his way. While he works, Saron immerses himself in the books of history, but quickly closes one when he hears steps approaching. He does not want Tamurin to find out that he is reading outside of his assigned task. However, Tamurin notices Saron's impressive ability to classify books. He also notices that Saron tends to work until late at night. Tamurin advises him not to get too exhausted, as there is still a long way to go. As he approaches Saron, Tamurin points out that not only the servants enter the library, but also the master of the house and his children. He warns Saron that he must be careful with his appearance and his actions, as he must maintain the dignity of the house at all times. He also suggests that he take care of his long hair, hinting that he should be more presentable. With one last look, Tamurin leaves, leaving Saron to reflect on the advice. Later, Saron is again in the library, absorbed in the books of history. He begins to realize how vast the history of Thoria is. There is so much to learn. Confused, he wonders how he is supposed to study everything else as well. He concludes that he must focus on understanding at least one part of each historical event and move on, instead of getting caught up in the details. As he continues to read, exhaustion begins to pass him by, and Saron falls asleep, his head resting on the books. Tamurin, upon entering the library later, finds Saron sleeping on his desk. He sighs, thinking that Saron is trying to approach everything at once and that, with that rhythm, he will be trapped in a single book for weeks. Feeling a little frustrated with Saron's high sleeps, Tamurin nods his head and leaves, allowing Saron to continue his rest. Saron is behind the reception counter in the Great Library, with his hands busy in the cataloging and classification of books, as always. He attends to any nobleman who comes to borrow books, although the behavior of the nobles no longer surprises him. Despite knowing the importance of his work, guiding the books and maintaining the catalog of the library, he is still frustrated that many nobles ask for books without returning them in time. They come back for more, holding the books borrowed as if they were indefinitely entitled to them. However, Saron maintains his composure, focusing on maintaining his devotion to work, although that means dealing with the disdain of the nobles for the rules. It has been more than 3 months since Saron started working in the Owen house, and by then the behavior of the nobles no longer affects him. What does surprise him is how much he has advanced in his studies. He has read more than 80 books during his time there, and although he is still far from his goal of reading 1,000, he acquires valuable knowledge every day. However, he knows that not all erudites have the potential to become magicians, especially those who cannot access the spiritual realm. Fortunately for Saron, his ability to enter the spiritual realm gives him an advantage that differentiates him from most erudites, making him more efficient and capable as a magician. This achievement further promotes his dedication to his work. One day, while attending the usual flow of nobles who enter the library, Saron notices a commotion. A young noble, Leo, enters the library in a hurry, looking anxious and somewhat misaligned. Upon instinctively observing Leo's hasty movements, Saron quickly perceives that something is not right. His intuition tells him that someone powerful is chasing Leo. As he hurriedly enters the library, an urgency is noticed in his behavior. He quickly approaches Saron, with his face showing a mixture of frustration and despair, and without saying much, he urges him to lie for him if someone asks for his presence. Leo hides under one of the shelves, trying to avoid being detected. Shortly after, the door opens suddenly and the Master Kate enters, filling the room with his imposing presence. He demands to know where Leo is. Without a doubt, Saron points out Leo's hideout. Despite the danger of betraying him, Saron understands the rules of noble culture. When serving someone of a higher rank, such as Master Kate, there is no room for disobedience. Saron helps drag Leo out of the library and, while they take him out, Leo throws a vengeful promise at Saron. He swears that, for having exposed him, Saron will regret it. Saron, however, remains firm in his decision, understanding that he had no other option. The noble hierarchy demands obedience to those in higher positions, and the status of Saron as a servant does not leave him space to challenge the master. Leo is taken, and rumors circulate that they drag him to the mountains, never to return. For months, the whole incident seems to fade, but the memory persists in Saron's mind, knowing that Leo's anger is not easily forgotten. Months go by, and Saron remains focused on his work, his studies, and his duties in the library. But one day, while he is absorbed in his books, the door opens suddenly with force. To his surprise, it is Leo, looking alive, but with the eyes full of a fierce determination. Leo approaches Saron, with his presence loaded with intention, and it is clear that he has come for only one thing: revenge. Despite the months of intense training that Leo must have undergone, Saron can still see the same fire in his eyes. Leo's resolution has not dimmed, and now Saron is face to face with the consequences of his previous actions. He tries to explain his reasons, but Leo's anger is palpable, and Saron feels the blow of being called a coward. Leo accuses Saron of betraying him out of fear, stating that his actions were not justified. Saron maintains his posture, although the words sink deep. He justifies his actions by explaining that he only exposed Leo because he feared the consequences of infuriating Master Kate. But Leo is not interested in explanations. He demands a duel, a way to settle scores between them. He presents a wooden sword and declares that he will show Saron how powerful he is. Although Saron doubts, he accepts, knowing that there is no other way to resolve the tension between them. He is not a swordsman, and Leo's reputation as a skilled fighter weighs a lot on his mind. But Saron maintains his resolution, accepting to let Leo have the first 3 blows. The duel begins, and Saron launches a blow with all his strength. But even with his initial advantage, he quickly realizes how much stronger Leo is. His blows are easily blocked, and the power behind Leo's defense leaves Saron struggling to keep up with the pace. Saron launches another blow with more effort than before, but when the wooden swords collide, they break with a strong blast. Both wooden swords break with a sharp crunch, and the sound resounds throughout the library. He surprises both, but it is Leo who is more astonished. He never expected such power from Saron, who only a few moments ago seemed a failure in this duel. Leo is frozen for a moment, unable to process what has just happened. After a few moments of atonic silence, he finally asks Saron how he managed to hit with such force. Saron, always direct, explains that the power behind his blow does not come from scrimmage or training with a sword. He tells Leo that it comes from a skill he learned when he was young, when his father taught him to cut firewood. At first, Saron struggled with the task, unable to break the logs no matter how hard he tried. But through persistence he discovered what is now called a hit thunder, a blow that channels all his energy in a single powerful movement. Although he has only used this technique to cut firewood, Saron has practiced it for years, perfecting the skill until it became something natural for him. Leo listens, still struggling to believe what Saron just told him. He feels a mixture of disbelief and shame. How could he, a noble son, be surpassed in such a way by someone who did not have formal training? He had been so sure of his own superiority and ability with the sword, and yet here was Saron, someone without a background in scrimmage, making a fool of him in such a humiliating way. This feeling of shame causes something deep within Leo. He awakens a memory of his childhood, one that has chased him for years. When he was young, one of his brothers had defeated him in a duel, a fair fight, and that left him a lasting mark. That defeat in front of his father changed everything. Leo's father, Leo Int, always seemed to favor the other children, and from that moment Leo felt that he could never be up to the task. His brothers, each with their own specialized talent, always seemed to eclipse him, but Leo had never discovered his own strength, his own special gift. This lack of identity, something to be proud of, had left him a feeling of insufficiency that still persisted. The Int family, known for their distinctive blue and black hair, had 4 sons, 3 boys and a daughter. The eldest son had black hair, the daughter and Leo had blue hair. Each of his brothers had found their vocation, their talent, something in which they could stand out. But Leo was still not sure of his place, and that uncertainty had only deepened over the years, especially after that defeat against his brother. Feeling the weight of his own frustrations and insufficiencies, Leo suddenly changes his attitude. He pulls out a royal steel sword from his shield and throws it at Saron, declaring that he will not give up just because the wooden swords broke. He insists that the duel is not over. Saron may have won this round, but Leo will not accept defeat so easily. He is determined to continue, and says that in exactly a month they will face each other again. Leo wants a rematch, one in which he can prove himself, and perhaps Saron that he is not just an easy noble son to defeat. Although Leo tries to explain that he is a coward, his arrogance prevents him from really listening to Saron's words. He does not want to recognize the truth in Saron's statement. The two separate, and Saron, determined not to be overcome, begins to devour all the books about Eskrima that he can find. He focuses on learning quick techniques, knowing that, although he may never be as strong as Leo, he can use his knowledge to equalize the playing field in his next duel. In Leo's next move, his effort is so intense that his teacher notices that something is not going well. Leo's strength has increased drastically, but there is something disturbing in his behavior. When his teacher asks him what is going on in his mind, Leo denies that there is something wrong, but his actions say the opposite. Leo continues to pressure himself more than before, and his performance becomes so powerful that his teacher is concerned about the risk of injury, breaking bones, or straining his muscles. Fearing for Leo's safety, his teacher stops training and demands that he reveal that he is bothering him. Despite the pressure, Leo keeps silent, not wanting to explain his inner torment. His teacher, recognizing Leo's potential but also understanding that he needs something more than brute force, advises him to look for other techniques or skills outside of Eskrima. He encourages him to find something that complements his skills with the sword, something that shows that he is striving to reach beyond his current limitations. Leo thanks his teacher for the advice, recognizing that it is the best advice he has received in years. Although Leo admits that he is still not very skilled with the sword, he swears to train with such dedication that no one will be able to defeat him in the future. Leo deeply believes in the words of his teacher about the importance of achieving everything in life through hard work and dedication. Saron, on the other hand, immerses himself in the study of the 6 most important sword techniques of the greatest swordsmen that have ever existed. He is determined to make the most of his time in the city and take advantage of the opportunity to experience the real world. He has promised to do everything possible to become stronger, understanding that every moment is valuable. Through his training, Saron realizes that there is a surprising similarity between the worlds of Eskrima and magic. Both are infinite by nature. Eskrima and magic have no end, always leaving room to improve. Saron practices with a royal sword, channeling all his concentration to anticipate the next movement of his opponent. He uses his ability to enter the spiritual realm to feel and predict the flow of the battle. For many days, Saron perfects his skills, gradually improving his understanding and technique. Meanwhile, Leo's approach is completely in revenge, practicing out of pride rather than a deeper understanding. The month passes quickly and the time of his duel arrives. It is night when they begin, and despite Saron's calm exterior, Leo is worried. He looks at Saron and notices how he holds the sword without the usual composure of a skilled swordsman. Leo briefly wonders if Saron is telling the truth about never having used a sword before. His ego drives him to believe that he will win, but he cannot shake the doubt that begins to invade his mind. In contrast to his first impressions, Leo feels a strange calm coming from Saron. Leo, driven by his need for revenge, takes a step forward with confidence, determined to show that his training has prepared him to defeat Saron. But when he attacks, he is surprised at how unexpectedly calm Saron remains. His posture is not what Leo expected from someone who has never wielded a sword, since he is dodging the blows that Leo throws at him, all thanks to his knowledge of scrimmage. His ability in the spiritual realm also helps him detect what blow will come next. When Leo sees that Saron is blocking and dodging all his attacks, he changes his technique so that each blow he throws at Saron weakens him. Although Saron can still guide the blows, he plans to tire him, believing that, once Saron weakens, he will easily win the duel. But what Leo does not know is that, although Saron is weakening, he does not waste energy returning the blows or let his emotions take control and accelerate his defeat. Just when Leo believes that he has exhausted Saron, he is surprised to see Saron attack him. Although it seems a normal attack, Leo does not think it will be a problem for him, but what he sees next is completely different. During his fight, Saron realizes that Leo is only trusting his physical strength and is swinging his sword without precision. This means that Leo does not truly understand the art of scrimmage. Even when Leo begins to use more strength, Saron remains calm, recognizing that the mental capacity or ability in scrimmage is more important than brute force. To defeat Leo, Saron knows exactly what to do. He knows that, if his physical strength is not enough, he must trust his technique to give the decisive blows. However, while Saron sees Leo lose focus and become more desperate, memories of his childhood resurface. He remembers how his parents praised his opponents, mostly relatives, every time he was defeated as a child. The thought of losing again is unbearable. He cannot accept it, especially because he was the one who started the fight and set the date. Losing now would mean dishonor to him and his family name. Driven by these thoughts, Leo fights like a madman, swinging his sword without control or awareness of where he is going. Even Saron, who is using his ability in the spiritual realm, can no longer detect Leo's blows. This continues for a few minutes, where both try to give their best so as not to lose one against the other, although there is nothing promised between them about what will happen to the person they lose. The worst thing that any of them could lose, in addition to being injured, is his reputation or his ego. With all his swords thrown in a disordered way, Leo manages to hit Saron in the chest, cutting his clothes, but not deep enough to make him stop fighting. The fight continues until one of them falls to the ground, making a normal sound. Everywhere there is silence during the first 2 minutes, which indicates a sign of victory for the one who still has his sword. It is Leo's sword that falls to the ground, while he swings it disorderly. The next blow he thinks Saron will take is not what he expects. Saron changes his grip in the middle of the movement and, before Leo realizes what is happening, he sees his sword on the ground. For Saron, this becomes a concern, since he has defeated a noble twice in a row. He stays there, thinking about what could now happen to him. Then, he finally speaks, asking Saron to kill him to honor the culture of mourning. Saron cannot believe what he hears and tells him that he will not live to see tomorrow if he manages to kill him. He tells Leo that it is all his fault from the beginning for trying to take him to death. He, a servant, saying that he should have followed his loyalty to the instructions of his instructor. Leo shouts back, insisting that he should have been loyal to him and explaining everything, including what he could and could not do. But after so much serious conversation, what makes Leo believe more is when he sees Saron sitting on the ground crying, saying that he did not want this and that he never planned for it to happen. Leo, seeing him, is speechless about what to say next. He decides to make him his friend because, according to Leo, although Saron defeated him, he does not make fun of him like his brothers, with whom he normally fights. He knows that, although he does not have the strength of Saron, he realizes that he compensates for the lack of strength and understanding, or he simply decides that he is a genius. As the two of them introduce themselves to each other, their friendship begins. It has been a year since Saron began working at the Great House of Went and has managed to classify more than 7,000 books out of more than 10,000. The master of the house is very proud of him, and Saron is also proud of himself, trying to read almost all the history books he promised to finish. Now he does it faster, reading between 2 and 3 books a day, enjoying it because he believes it strengthens his knowledge while reading. Since the last time they fought, they have become close friends. Leo now spends his free time with him to keep him company at the library. All this makes them like each other more, since they often ask each other about any topic they choose in the library. Saron always begs Leo to be kind with the books, warning him that he, Saron, could lose his life if any of them were torn. But Leo always assures him that his life is worth more than a book and that he will always protect him if something bad happens. However, Saron seems to be more worried as he increases the number of times he sees Leo with him, which makes him wonder why Leo is not training as before. Leo replies that, although he only has a few basic training lessons left, whenever he tells his teacher that he is going to the library to study, his teacher always lets him go. This makes Saron shout at him, saying that if he really comes to read at the library, he should be reading. But Leo finds it difficult to read books with images or combat diagrams, always saying that they are boring. On one occasion, he asks Saron that, since he is becoming a magician as he wishes, he does not think he really needs to read all the books he says he has read. Saron replies that he needs to cover or know everything that a magician knows how to be a magician and everything that an erudite knows how to be a good erudite. While they have a discussion one day about who they think could win between a magician and a swordsman, Lee suddenly appears behind them. Immediately, Leo stands up to greet him, wondering if he has been listening to their conversation, but Lee is more interested in his argument, saying that a swordsman will always win over a magician, assuring that they can see in their immediate environment the positions or authorities that both have. Leo does not agree with him at this point, and then Lee asks them to justify this opinion, asking what they think. Saron supports the idea that the magician will win, but before he can explain his reason, Lee tells him directly that he is wrong. Immediately, Leo sees where Lee's anger comes from. It is Lee who always makes him angry, because with Lee's rule, everything he says or does is the best, never considering the perspectives of other people, always trampling what he thinks is right. When Lee is about to leave, he turns to Leo and tells him that, although a magician could blindly enter his spiritual kingdom to fight, a swordsman would easily win if he had the armor of sin with him. It is an artifact that is anti-magic by nature. As soon as Saron hears the word anti-magic, he realizes that he has not been studying it as much as he should. He has been too focused on the magical side, as if that were only to help him achieve his goal of becoming a complete magician with aspirations to master academic skills, some skirmish and magic. He knows he has to do everything he is asked. He continues to explain the phenomenon to the group, saying that fighting a magician who has entered the spiritual zone is like fighting a whale in the ocean, but with the help of an anti-magic artifact. It is possible to counteract any magic they cast, even from the spiritual realm. If one approaches enough, their magic becomes completely ineffective. Lee, who seems to be a fan of history, joins the discussion with enthusiasm. He tells them that anti-magic artifacts are made from dragon hearts, which makes them extremely expensive. A single armor of sin costs as much as a year of the country's budget, he says, and its price is not fixed. It fluctuates according to demand. That is why only the extremely rich can afford it. The group is surprised when Lee adds that the first anti-magic artifact was created by a magician. Leo, skeptical, shakes his head, incredulous. But Lee continues to explain that the magician was driven by greed and the desire to surpass his companions. This revelation irritates both Lee and Leo, who call the pathetic magicians for creating something that could be used against their own species. But Saron, who has been silent for a few moments, finally intervenes. He explains that the anti-magic artifact was really developed by a magician from the Association of Magicians to balance world power. His purpose was not only to counteract magic, but to ensure that no side could dominate. It is even used in magic schools to discipline students or in areas prohibited from magic to make the rules come true. Lee, who usually despises Leo, feels that he has been taught a lesson and humiliated. Frustrated, he can no longer bear the conversation and leaves, murmuring angry. Leo, for his part, cannot hide his smile. For once, someone has managed to put Lee in his place, and he feels like a personal victory. Saron enjoys how Leo has managed to make him lose his ego, although Leo never wanted this to happen. 6 months later, when the newly relocated library is finally organized, with the classification of the books completed 6 months before planned, the library teacher admires his achievement. His assistant suggests that perhaps it would be better to extend his contract in some way in the library. Leo breaks into the door screaming as he approaches Saron, who has heard that all the books in the library are finally classified. Saron replies that he has also managed to read all the history books he had planned. Then he surprises Leo by asking him if he could visit his house before they separate. Leo is surprised. After being friends for almost a year, he admits that he had been waiting for Saron to ask him. He accepts and takes him there, assuring him not to worry, since everyone is out and they will not return until the night. Walking down the hall of the house, they reach Leo's room, the smallest, since he is the youngest in the family. The room is messy, as expected of boys his age. However, it is full of an impressive collection of swords, from wood to steel. After exploring the house, they return to Leo's room and begin to play cards as usual. Saron wins all the rounds. Frustrated, Leo accuses him of using his abilities of the spiritual realm. Saron laughs and explains that he does not need those powers. He simply observes Leo closely. He advises him to see the full picture, not just parts of it. Intrigued, Leo asks if such a skill could work in a scheme. Saron responds with confidence that if it works in the spiritual realm, it should work in the scheme as well. Eventually, Leo falls asleep. Saron takes a fiction book and says he is tired of reading history for now. As he walks down the hall, he hears the sound of a piano. He knows that only 2 people in the area play the piano, and one of them is Leo's sister. Curious, he looks his head out the door, not realizing that she has already noticed it. When he asks her if she likes her way of playing, Saron replies surprised that yes. She introduces herself and asks who she is. Saron explains, and she praises him for his diligent work at the library. Then she asks him if he has ever played the piano. When he admits no, she insists on teaching him. Saron remembers what Leo told her about her, that she is bad and of a bad temper, but decides not to let herself be discouraged. She invites him to sit next to her, and he decides to see how far he takes them at this unexpected moment. Saron feels surprised and somewhat reluctant to sit with her, but she assures him that there will be no problem, since she has given him permission to join. With his security and the opportunity to sit on a piano, something he does not know when he will find again, he finally accepts, although hesitantly. She begins by explaining that she represents each key. Saron, being who he is, knows that the only thing he needs to focus on is making sure the feeling is correct. After listening carefully, he asks if he can try to play with what little she has taught him. To his amazement, his attempt is not only acceptable, but, although not perfect or expertly, his way of playing is impressive for someone who plays a piano for the first time. Lena applauds, genuinely surprised by his talent. He has not finished playing when Leo breaks into the room screaming frustrated because his sister has woken him up. But as soon as he sees Saron on the piano, he stands still, not knowing what to say. Saron apologizes for interrupting Leo's rest, but Leo immediately demands that he know how Saron knows his sister. Saron calmly explains what happened. Leo then introduces Lena, explaining how the two have been good friends for more than a year. Saron turns to Leo and asks him why he painted his sister as the most unfriendly person in the family. While the two boys talk, Lena silently watches Saron, wondering how someone like him, a peasant, can behave so well and be so good. Finally, he asks Saron how he managed to play so well. He despises him by saying that it is only common sense, but Leo interrupts by warning Saron not to be fooled by Lena's kindness, calling her a witch. Lena thanks Saron for being a good friend of her brother, mentioning that Leo is still immature. Then he looks at Saron and comments that he is quite adorable. Leo, in response, jokes that if he likes him so much, he should marry him. Ignoring the mockery, Saron turns to the question and asks Lena why she is at home, especially because there was supposed to be no one else. She explains that she is there to help Leo prepare for school tomorrow, as he will complete his certification, a system designed both for swordsmen and for magicians. Leo and Lena explain to Saron how competitive certification exams are. The number of candidates selected each year is incredibly small compared to the thousands that try to apply. Although certification can be obtained by accumulating points through the guild or graduating from a magic academy, after reaching a certain level, the prestige of passing the exam directly is incomparable. Leo emphasizes that, despite the unofficial routes, most people prefer to pass the exam properly due to the money and fame it entails. Lena adds that Leo will take the exam at the early age of 18, while he gently touches his shoulder. She reassures him, telling him that he should not worry, that his time will also come. Then, heading to Saron, he walks to the kitchen, casually mentioning that he would love to see him again while he moves away. Saron asks Leo if his sister has a boyfriend. Without hesitation, Leo runs to the corridor and shouts loudly asking his sister if she is single. Before he can finish, Saron throws him away again, covering his mouth in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Mr. Luis Janis, two members of the house, observe the commotion from a nearby room, writing down everything that is said in silence. Later that afternoon, Leo is training with his teacher Kate, who is thoughtful, planning how to help Leo refine his skills in the scheme. When a servant quickly approaches saying that Lena wants to see Leo urgently, at first Leo is reluctant, but when the servant mentions Saron, he immediately asks his teacher for permission to leave, promising to apologize later with his father for Saron's sake. Meanwhile, Saron is escorted to the front of the family. The atmosphere is tense while the head of the family coldly announces the death penalty for Saron. It is the day that Saron must leave the mansion, but it has reached the ears of the head of the family that Saron, a peasant, has been associating himself with nobles, specifically with Leo and Lena. At that moment, Lena is sitting next to her father, observing everything in silence. Lena, deeply worried, tries to convince her father to reconsider, feeling that there is something more in Saron than he knows. He believes that there is something that his father should understand, but his pleas are ignored. The head of the family is fixed in the report of the mayor, with several servants testifying about the repeated visits of Saron and his close relationship with the children. Despite the tension, the head of the family gives Saron the opportunity to speak. Saron, still on his knees, does not beg for mercy, on the other hand, calmly points out that he and Leo have been friends for more than a year and, during that time, no harm has occurred to any of them. He challenges the idea that his friendship is a threat to someone. Lena watches Saron, feeling a sense of pride. Even in the face of death, he remains faithful to his beliefs and loyal to Leo. She hopes that one day she will also have a friend like him, someone who values kindness and loyalty above all. Meanwhile, the mayor and the servants who have testified against Saron whisper to each other, surprised by his refusal to beg for his life. They wonder why they insist on defending their friendship instead of begging for mercy. The head of the family, enraged by Saron's defiant calm, orders him to be dragged away. The penalty for his actions will be death, and no one will talk about it outside those walls. Lena protests, but her father is firm, insisting that the reputation of the family must be preserved. Even the slightest disturbance, such as Saron's friendship with Leo, must be handled quickly and in silence to avoid tarnishing his noble name. Two guards take Saron and drag him to the exit. Just before reaching the door, Leo bursts into the room, with his evident fury trying to stop them. He argues, but his father remains motionless, insisting that the association of a noble with a peasant is a weakness that could damage the status of the family. The head of the family believes that allowing a friendship like that to continue would be a shame for his legacy. Leo stands up holding the sword that his teacher Kate gave him. His father asks him a difficult question, demanding proof that Saron is not only using it for his own benefit. Leo knows that this is no longer just a discussion, it is a test, a battle between him and his father, and everything is at stake. Just a few moments ago, Leo had been with his teacher Kate, who warned him about the importance of reputation in noble families. Kate told him that extending a hand to someone like Saron could bring problems. But Leo refuses to abandon his friend. He remembers the passion he felt when he trained to defeat Saron, and now that passion drives him to defend Saron. Whatever happens, Kate, seeing Leo's determination, gives him a sword and tells him that he should use it if he really believes in his decision. Back to the present, Leo looks at the sword in his hand and laughs softly. He knows that he cannot defeat his father in a fight, but that does not matter. What matters is his belief in Saron. He tells his father that his friendship is real, built on trust, not on status or reputation. It is a belief that he holds firmly, no matter what his father says. His father is furious. He accuses Saron of cheating on his son and tries to force him to admit that his friendship is wrong. But Leo remains firm, saying that he prefers to abandon his family before renouncing his friendship with Saron. Saron, calm and willing to face whatever comes, tells the family that he knew the consequences when he accepted Leo's friendship. He is willing to face death for them if necessary. The servants observe in silence, moved by the loyalty and courage they see in Leo and Saron. They understand that what they are witnessing is a true friendship, stronger than anything that society or the family can break. Suddenly, the voice of the grandfather resounds from the upper floor. He comments that it has been a long time since he saw something like this, calling it the joy of youth. Lena is the happiest person in the room. He feels that things will go well now that his grandfather is back. His father is surprised to see him here at this time and asks him why he is present. The grandfather explains that he went to visit a friend, but had to return because his friend seemed to enjoy more of the company of his new wife than his, so he returned home. Saron is surprised to see Clamp for the first time. He is a well-known man, the former head of the family and the general of Thoria. He is a level 3 swordsman and seems to be in his 30 or 40 years, tall and in shape. He sits in a chair and says that he is excited about what is happening. Leo's father asks him why he is excited, especially because the family's reputation is collapsing. Clamp replies that, although the dignity of the house is at risk, he enjoys seeing how much he loves Saron. He is impressed by how he seems to like people despite the situation. The grandfather takes control of the situation. He calls all his grandchildren to speak, starting with the eldest, Lena. She says that she supports both Leo and Saron, although she only met Saron the day before. He sees that he is a very talented person with many good qualities and does not agree with his father's decision to kill him. Then it is Lee's turn. He calls Saron a fool, which makes his father happy, because at least someone is supporting his side. But then Lee continues to say that what Saron and Leo are doing does not concern him. Although he does not like Saron, he simply wants things to follow his course so that his sister can take him to the palace for his exam. In other words, Lee is neutral in the situation. The grandfather enjoys seeing everything that happens with a smile and goes to M.R. Thorin, the third witness, asking him to speak. Although he knows that it is not his place to intervene, Mr. Thorin says that he has been observing Saron since his arrival. He sees him as a hard-working boy and mentions all the things that Saron has done for the nobles. When asked about his friendship with Leo, Mr. Thorin admits that he did not know that they could be friends, but he believes that Saron does not have bad intentions towards Leo. The servants and the chief of the servants who brought the case try to silence Mr. Thorin, but Lena is happy to hear everything. It seems that the tide is turning against his father, who is now the only one who continues to insist on punishing Saron. The grandfather listens to everything that is said and finally disagrees with the rest. The room remains silent while his decision is explained. Although Leo and Saron have become friends, the grandfather insists that their friendship should end here today. He says that he will not punish Saron for having introduced friendship, but he makes it clear that the reputation of the house and the position of the family in the government are too important. He uses Lee as an example, saying that if such rumors spread, Lee could face discrimination during his exams at the palace. The grandfather asks Saron if he agrees to end the friendship, but after thinking for a long time, Saron refuses. He says he would rather stay away, but he will never give up his friendship with Leo. Leo is surprised and tears fall from his eyes. He remembers what his teacher Kate had told him before coming here. Leo then raises the sword in his hand. Before he can say anything else, his sister begs him not to do it, but Leo goes on. He nails the sword to the ground, declaring that, from this day on, it will serve Saron and will be known as the Sword of Saron. Everyone is surprised, and there is still a bit of commotion as the family reacts to this unexpected statement. What Leo has just done is a great deal. It is a practice that dates from the early days of the kingdom, when the little kings formed alliances with the main king through something called the Nocturnal Oath. This oath was a long-standing tradition that noble families have respected since then. Even Leo's teacher, who gave him the sword, remains speechless, knowing that he has caused an unexpected problem. The grandfather does not waste time, stands up and tells Saron to take care of his son. He orders the servants to bring Saron's parents to explain everything that has happened. The grandfather says that, since Leo and Saron have sworn to be the best friends for life, there is nothing else that can be done about it. Inside Leo's room, Leo is happy. He feels that he managed to convince them. He says that he does not regret having sworn loyalty to Saron. His sister enters the room and tells them about the family's next plan. Both will be sent to a private school in Eskrima. This means that Saron is officially part of the family now. At first, Leo does not like the idea of going to school, but his sister explains to him that it is the situation that has touched them and that they must accept it. Then he tells Lena that Saron really wants to be a magician. He is not a swordsman. Lena laughs and says that it seems that Saron was defeated by a magician. This makes both Lena and Saron laugh and send Leo out of the room. Lena sits down and asks Saron to explain how he managed to beat Leo. Saron tells him that whenever he is in the spiritual realm, his senses sharpen, which allows him to predict Leo's next move. Then he mentions that he has heard that the spiritual realm can increase the power of a person depending on their concentration. While he is about to leave, he looks at Saron and wonders if he will ever have a girlfriend, seeing how shy he is when he talks to her. He decides to help convince his grandfather about Saron's wishes, but makes it clear that that will not prevent them from attending Eskrima school. He also tells Leo that his teacher Kate has finished his contract with him the day before. Later, Saron's parents arrive, and the servants call him teacher while he comes down in a hurry. He is surprised and tells them that it is okay to call him just by his name, but they insist that they cannot risk losing their heads. When opening the door of the reception area, he sees his parents. They hug him tightly, showing how long it has been since they last saw each other. Saron notes that they look much thinner than before and wonders if they have been starving, fearing that they would think that he would not come back alive. But his parents assure him that it is only because of his age and that they have been eating well. He explains everything that happened between him and Leo, the son of the noble family. His father struggles to believe that a nobleman would do something like sponsoring a peasant, and even wonders if Saron is being coerced. His wife intervenes, telling him to stop doubting his son and that she believes what Saron is saying. While they continue to get up to date, the servants announce that the master of the house has arrived. He enters with Lena and Leo, and they all introduce themselves, starting with the master of the house. Each of them mentions their position. Saron's parents quickly get up, showing great respect, tilting their heads in a sign of greeting. Without further introductions, the master of the house asks if his son has told them everything that is happening. Saron's father screams in disbelief, confirming that it is true. Now they are at dinner, and it is allowed that Saron's parents feel like a single family with them. It is the first time that their parents eat such food, but they manage to handle it with the help of the servants, who teach them to use the utensils correctly. When they finish eating, Saron's father thanks them for their support during all this time. He asks them to confirm everything that his son has told them, just to make sure that it is exactly as he said. The master of the house then tells them about the plan to send Saron to Eskrima's school, but they will not pay for any of the expenses. However, they will allow him to use his honorary title. They also discuss the possibility that Saron will become a magician, explaining that the best way to do it quickly is to attend one of the 5 main magic schools. With their reputation, they do not expect it to be a problem to enter, and if he graduates, he will officially become a magician. Saron's parents cannot believe what they are hearing. It seems like an illusion to them that someone like him can become a magician. The master of the house explains that the real challenge is to get Saron to enter such a prestigious school. To use his honorary title, he must sign a document that declares it as an opponent, even if it is only on paper. This will ensure that he does not face problems when he arrives at school. They reassure Saron's parents by telling them that they are not taking their son away. Vincent, Saron's father, is speechless. He does not know what to do with the paper and the pen in front of him. To his surprise, Saron stops him, holding his hand and saying that he will not let his parents sign something like that. He declares that he will always be his son. Saron says he will not go, although that means losing his dream of becoming a magician. He chooses to continue being a peasant despite his grandfather's efforts to convince him otherwise, arguing that a peasant cannot become a magician. Saron replies that his ability to read and be where he is today is thanks to his parents, who taught him to read. He insists that he does not want to lose his roots. Vincent, Saron's father, kneels immediately and begs him to adopt Saron, but the grandfather insists that his opinion must be considered to make such an important decision. Suddenly, Vincent declares that Saron is not his biological son. His wife tries to stop him as much as she can so that he does not tell the story of how they found Saron in the stable, but finally he says that he is sure that Saron is of the noble lineage. He believes that it is best to adopt him and return him to where he really belongs, among the nobles. Everyone, including the grandfather, are amazed by what Vincent just said. The master of the house realizes that it is true. Saron does not look like his parents at all. Now his parents are giving him up, but Saron is fighting with them, asking them why they would say something like that without telling him before. Vincent tells him that he does not want Saron to give up his dream for him. He believes that it is better that Saron knows the truth now that he is older. Saron says that he has known it since he was little, that being handed over to the own family means that they are abandoning him, just as his real parents did. Being adopted would mean having a total of 6 parents in your life. Tears roll down everyone's faces as Saron speaks. It is an emotional moment. The master of the house thinks of another way for Saron to enter the prestigious Alphea school without losing his 2 parents. Remember that your grandfather has a relationship with the owner of the school. The grandfather confirms this, saying that although it may be difficult to convince the man, the school principal owes him a favor, so it is best to use it now for Saron. He warns that Saron will be stubborn if he decides not to give in. With the help of the master of the house, Saron's parents can stay until the 3rd day, when the preparations are made for the children to go to their respective schools. When the 3rd day arrives, Leo is outside the carriage crying. He feels that the school is separating them, although they both chose the same school. Leo's admission letter arrives first, which means that Saron will not be able to attend until the next year, if his letter arrives by then. Leo tells him that they will meet during the holidays and letters will be written to each other. He tells Saron that he must make sure to become a magician, no matter the situation in which he is. Finally, when they separate, Leo continues to call Saron's name as the carriage moves away. Lena says she loves the way he clings to his ideals. He wants to tell him something, but then he realizes that once Saron graduates, he will be in a world of magic. Grandpa Int is at school trying to convince the principal about Saron's case, even reminding him of the favor he owes him. However, the teacher, an older man, makes it difficult. Grandpa Int convinces him by describing how good Saron is and how he remembers him when he was younger. Finally, the teacher agrees and asks him why Saron has not applied as a normal student. Grandpa Int explains that Saron is not of noble lineage, but the teacher asks if the boy has blonde hair and blue eyes. Grandpa Int is surprised by the description and asks the teacher if he has seen him before. He says no, but something comes to mind. He tells the principal how he was able to convince him and his family to like him and how he rejected his proposal when they offered him to become noble. The teacher says that this means that Saron understands the law of nature, the cause and effect, and that even being a great teacher in Eskrima, he knows that such knowledge in Saron is rare. The teacher also says that Saron remembers him when he was little, because he also never gave up when he was young. Both continue to talk about their pasts, saying that the teacher never wanted any child to be like him when he was younger, so he built a school to guide talented people in magic, so that they do not follow the wrong path. Grandpa Int tells him about the future of the country, saying that they will really need someone like Saron. The teacher finally admits that he had already seen Saron before, when he was 4 years old, and Grandpa Ant says that it may be the fate that Saron has returned to learn under his tutelage. The teacher says that, although he does not believe in fate, what he believes the most is in the law of cause and effect. Finally, he accepts that it was the social class that prevented him from accepting Saron when he came for the first time. But now that Saron has returned to him, he will accept him at school. After 3 months, it is spring. Saron prepares to go to school. First, he visits his parents outside the city. Both hug him tightly, telling him how proud they are of him. Even Grandpa Ant asks them to come live in the city, offering them one of his free houses. His parents do not tell anyone in the town about his entrance to the magic school, which will be called Town City. Saron gets on the carriage and heads to school. He finally arrives at the school, a massive house built one on another, adorned with many decorative statues. Mr. Tamura, who has accompanied him there, tells him that all his admission fees and whatever he needs will be paid at the right time. All he has to do is study enough to make his parents proud. There are other students around Saron who are of his age, also arriving at school for the first time. While they meet, Saron leans to thank Mr. Tamura. Mr. Tamura smiles and approaches to tell Saron a secret to help him survive at school. He warns him that, since he is not noble, it is likely that others will try to frustrate him. He tells Saron to ignore them, because this opportunity to attend such a prestigious school is a rare opportunity, one in a million. Mr. Tamura guides Saron through the corridors of the school as they head to the register. The school is known as the Cradle of Genius, a place where only the best are successful. Upon entering a corridor, Mr. Tamura tells Saron to wait for someone to come and look for him. While he waits, Saron looks at the school ad board. There are about 30 senior students in the upper level, but only 10 of them graduated last year. This gives Saron an idea of how difficult the school will be. Suddenly, someone touches him from behind. It is the teacher, the same man he met before. They recognize each other immediately, and Saron thanks him for all the lessons he gave him when Saron was younger. Now that he is 17 years old, the teacher begins to show him the school, reminding Saron that he will have to take an admission exam. This exam will determine which class he belongs to. Saron admits that he has not learned much yet, but the teacher reassures him by telling him that, while Saron can enter the spiritual realm, he will be fine. They walk through the first set of classrooms, which are for the youngest students, from Class X to Class 8. In these classrooms, the students practice basic magic, using it for things like their costumes and small tasks. Saron is amazed at how focused and skilled they are at such an early age. Then they go to the next set of classrooms, from Class 7 to Class 4, which are for the most advanced students. These students are older and their studies are much more complex. The conversations in these classrooms are full of talks about everything, from chemistry to electricity, and no one seems to care what the others are doing. Saron quickly realizes that he has entered a completely new world, one where the students are serious, intelligent, and focused on their own goals. The teacher takes Saron to the school's advertising board, where they classify the best students in advanced classes. A name stands out, Anicaps. She is at the top of the list. What surprises Saron is how, despite the fact that many students have similar skills, one person still manages to stand out over the others. It is then when Saron decides that he also wants to be the best student in his class. While he is still thinking about this, Anicaps passes by with his friend running after her, asking her to wait. Saron calls his name, but as soon as Ami hears it, he quickly turns his gaze away. He realizes that he has seen her before, when he was little, the first time he used magic. His friend notices that Saron is looking at her, and whispers to Ami that she should take a look at the new and better student. Ami, still distracted, says that she feels as if she had seen him somewhere before. The teacher interrupts their moment and tells Saron to follow them to where the exam will be carried out. When they arrive, Saron sees that there are also small children taking the exam. These children are being evaluated to determine which classes they will be assigned. The teacher tells Saron to pay attention to how the examiners ask the questions and, most importantly, to answer them sincerely. This is a practical exam with several examiners who qualify each participant according to how well they perform. When the exam begins, the children enter the spiritual realm to demonstrate their skills. The examiners record their answers and reactions, noting that each year the skills of the participants become stronger. When it is Saron's turn, the teacher tells him to be the same and lets him take the place where the questions will be asked. Taking a step forward, all the examiners begin to wonder what type of skill he could have. They know that Saron is listed in the forms as a guest of the Oni family and as a special candidate for the director. The first question they ask him is what he can do with his magic. Saron responds honestly, saying that he has not learned magic because there was no one to teach him. Then they ask him to enter the spiritual realm. The examiners feel relieved because not all students with wealth can perform magic. When Saron enters the spiritual realm, he begins to see what others have been seeing. Now he can perceive the spiritual world as they do. The first examiner asks him what he sees, but Saron doubts at first. The director reminds him again to be honest, explaining that he will not be classified by his answer, but that he will be placed in the right training class. This reassures Saron, who responds slowly saying that the numbers are getting further and further away. After a brief pause, he finally tells them that he sees the number 314, although he has no idea what it means. The examiners are surprised by his answer. What Saron has just described suggests that he is able to see clearly up to 30 meters away, which is well above the standard that they had established for the exam. This ability surprises him, since it shows a level of perception that most students do not have. Next, they ask him what is the most vibrant color he can see. Saron replies that it is blue, which indicates that he is a swarm, a type of magician with great resistance. The examiner notes that this is the opposite of a clamp, a type of magic user with a set of different skills. The director, hearing this, suddenly remembers what his old friend, Clamp, Leo's grandfather, had told him about Saron. It seems that Saron's skills are even more notable than what Clamp had described. Then, the examiners ask him how many mana spheres he can see floating around him. Saron responds confidently that he sees 867 spheres, which is an impressive number. He does not need to explain more, since he can feel the mana spheres around him, which is equivalent to 86.7% of the standard for magic resistance. After finishing the interrogation, they are asked to wait outside while the examiners deliberate on which class to assign them. While they wait outside, Saron stays with the others, but the examiners remain inside discussing Saron's skills in detail. They talk about the use of the amplifying object and the unique way in which he perceives the vibrant mana spheres, which have a higher density than expected. The discussion intensifies when Professor Sat suggests that perhaps Saron was exaggerating or lying about the amount of mana spheres he could see. He points out that someone who cannot perform magic but somehow sees so many mana spheres could be lying, since students typically need significant training and meditation in the spiritual realm for their skills to manifest and be more visible. A female examiner adds that, even if Saron was lying, a student who cannot support such affirmations with real magic ability will not be able to stay up to date with the class in which they place him. One of the other examiners jokes, asking if Saron is training to become a monkey, suggesting that his affirmations could only be attempts to show off. The debate continues for a while they try to decide which is the best class for Saron. Finally, the director enters the room and asks what they have decided. Professor Sat firmly suggests that Saron should be placed in the fundamental class, where he could receive basic training and gradually develop his skills. However, another examiner, recognizing Saron's potential, suggests that he should be placed in Class 6, a higher level class for students who show a significant promise. Sat remains firm in his opinion, arguing that putting Saron in Class 6 would be a mistake. He believes that being in such an advanced class could inflate Saron's ego, leading him to become too confident and causing possible problems with his training. They insist that Saron should start from the basics and test his skills through hard work and dedication. After much debate among the teachers, each one wanting to train Saron due to his apparent potential, the room is filled with divergent opinions. Some argue that his natural talent should be placed in an advanced class, while others are concerned that he lacks basic training. The disagreement is interrupted by the voice of an older woman in the back of the room. She calmly suggests that, although Saron is really talented, he still lacks the fundamental training that would make him truly ready for more advanced classes. He proposes that he should be placed in Class 7, where he can be observed for a while. If his progress is expected, he could be promoted to a higher class eventually, finding a suitable class that corresponds to his skills. The director, after considering this suggestion, agrees with the evaluation of the older woman and supports placing Saron in Class 7. The school structure is divided into 3 parts, with a total of 10 different classes. Classes 10 to 8 are for novice students who are still learning to enter their spiritual kingdom, while classes 7 to 4 are for students who are learning the basics of mathematical magic and how to connect with their spiritual areas. The last group, classes 3 to 1, is made up of the most advanced students who undergo rigorous training to become magicians. These classes are the most difficult to graduate, with only a small number of students who successfully complete the program. The next day, Saron is introduced to his new class. Upon entering, he notices that the students are looking at him, and many of the girls whisper about how handsome he is. However, some of the other students seem confused and worried. They wonder how someone who did not start as a novice could be placed so high in the range of classes. Saron, despite his confusion, is determined to show his worth. The school itself covers a vast area of about 75 square kilometers, with more than 30 buildings, including dormitories for students. Classes end at 5 in the afternoon every day, and there are strict rules on staying inside the school grounds during the weekdays. Students cannot leave the enclosure unless they are allowed to, which adds to the rigorous discipline required in the school. Finally, now he is wearing the prestigious uniform of the Alpha School. He realizes that all classes and work are hard, just as expected from the advanced class in which he was placed. Even the richest students, who have been studying magic their whole lives, still find it difficult to learn easily, but he promises himself that he will not lag behind in any of his studies. After the first class, he asks a girl his age where the location of his next training could be. The girl, who is also introverted, tells him that twice a week, all advanced class students train together. When training time comes, the girl keeps a seat for him. As he sits among the crowd, he notices that when Ami, a classmate, enters, all the students begin to look at her. Even Saron guesses that she could be transferred soon to a higher class. He tries to avoid her as best he can due to his last encounter. Finally, the teacher enters the training room, which is larger than a regular classroom. The teacher, a woman named Italaromi, will be his exclusive spirit teacher. After introducing himself, he tells Saron to stand up and introduce himself to his classmates. As soon as he stands up, all the students, especially the girls, begin to look at him. When he introduces himself, he follows an applause, and he feels overwhelmed by it. Ami and her close friend are among the students. His friend points it out, saying that he was the one who mentioned yesterday when the principal was showing him the school. When Ami looks at him, he knows that he has seen his face somewhere, but does not remember where. As soon as Saron finishes introducing himself, there is a sudden increase in Ami's brain activity, and, suddenly, he remembers how he knows him. Ami Karas, the youngest member of the prestigious House of Karas, belongs to a noble family where change occurs quickly and where geniuses abound. However, she stands out among all, since she has the most exceptional talents. The Karas family is known for their unique ability called the Red Eye, which allows them to absorb knowledge without effort, which makes their learning much easier than that of other humans. Ami has always been able to do what she pleases until one day she met a boy in an alley, Saron. That meeting marked a turning point that led her back home. Now, while Ami watches Saron, she suddenly remembers the boy's face. His mind runs trying to put the pieces together about how and where he met him. He doesn't even realize when he lets go. What the hell? And his friends ask him why he said that. But Ami lies, claiming it was just because she was bored. However, when his friends move away and continue talking, Ami's concern increases. He knows that his brain does not deceive him and cannot get rid of the feeling that Saron's appearance at school is not a coincidence. While he thinks, he begins to wonder how Saron managed to enter such a prestigious school. From that moment on, he classifies him mentally as someone who is not noble. What worries her the most is her past, a past that she never wanted to resurface with Saron here now. She feels the weight of that past, knowing that she must do something about it. She stares at him, not knowing what to do next, as she remembers the memories that have been buried for so long. It was years ago, when Ami, used to doing what she wanted as a noble, moved with thugs, harassing anyone, especially peasants on the roads. One of those peasants was Saron, who ordered his thugs to take off his clothes just to be able to examine him. But now, since he is in school, Ami has developed a hard and strong facade, rejecting any man who tries to approach or become friends with her. What worries her the most is that Saron can expose his past, a past that he deeply regrets. She used to enjoy being surrounded by men, but now, with everything at stake, she fears what Saron may reveal. Finally, the teacher begins the class, explaining how students can transform their spiritual areas in different ways to hit a specific target. He demonstrates it by hitting a target in class. To the surprise of many of the students of Class 7, Saron feels grateful to finally witness real magic being practiced and taught. The teacher refers to this technique as the kitten's spiritual zone, which consists of 4 forms: defense, attack, cross, and seismic. He explains each form. For defense, he takes the shape of a diamond. The attack is versatile, allowing a variety of offensive blows from different angles, while the cross form allows combat from multiple directions. The final form, seismic, is the most difficult, since it is specialized for certain magicians due to its unique nature. The teacher then demonstrates the seismic, creating a spiritual kingdom and, to the amazement of everyone, separates her body from her mind, walking outside her spiritual kingdom. This revelation amazes the entire class, since it challenges their understanding of the connection between the mind and the body. The teacher emphasizes that the seismic form allows magicians to attack enemies from all directions, making it very effective but difficult to master. Add that the students of Class 5 will find it challenging, and that only those who can successfully perform the seismic will be able to advance to the next class. After explaining the concepts, the teacher asks a volunteer to demonstrate any of the forms that he has taught. When no one offers, he calls the outstanding student of Class 4, none other than Ami. At the moment her name is mentioned, the students, especially the girls, begin to applaud in admiration, since Ami has always been the one who helps the teacher with the demonstrations. She is known for her humility, making the boys seem to know nothing compared to her skills. However, to everyone's surprise, Ami does not get up proud as she usually does. Instead of that, she doubts, feeling reluctant to leave her seat. Finally, Ami challenges herself and takes a step forward, demonstrating the cross form with ease. She hits all her targets in a matter of seconds, and the class explodes in applause. Her movements are graceful and elegant, and the students sitting behind the cliffs whisper among themselves, admiring her precision and composure. Some would even want to be her friend, knowing that they could never match her knowledge and skills. Saron, however, remains focused on her, her thoughts deviating from when he saw her for the last time with the thugs. He wonders how someone of his noble status could have gotten involved in such actions. Ami completes her demonstration of the cross form in just 20 seconds, showing her exceptional skills. When she turns around to return to her seat, she unexpectedly looks at Saron. The entire class notices the brief visual contact, and many begin to wonder if they have seen each other before. Saron, now sure that she is the same girl from her past, confirms it in her mind while her eyes meet. Ami quickly turns her gaze away, feeling ashamed to have even looked at him. She tries to blame her nerves, focusing on returning to her seat, but deep down she is worried about how to prevent him from revealing her past. She calms herself down, thinking that, as the best student, no one would believe a newcomer like Saron above her, even if he spoke. Then, the class is instructed to leave their seats and practice in the center of the room, which is big enough to accommodate everyone. The teacher tells the students in Class 7 to start with the defensive form, while the students in other classes receive different ways to practice. Saron tries to mold her spiritual zone and, when she finds it easy, she asks the teacher for permission to use the magic circle, which helps to measure a person's spiritual meter. The teacher, somewhat impressed by her confidence, gives her permission, thinking to herself that Saron must have the guts to ask for this, especially being a student of Class 7.